She had nothing but her warmth to offer what the human gave her. Instead, melted hearts. The cold metal floor pressed against her skin as Kira huddled in the corner of the abandoned station. She was alone and freezing with only the thin fabric of her damaged suit to shield her from the bitter chill that seeped through every crack in the walls her people had left her behind during the evacuation, when the station began to fail. They said there was no room on the last transport ship, she understood. The logic of it, she was weak and injured and resources were scarce, but understanding did not make the abandonment hurt any less. Her species, the Villani, were known across the galaxy for their fragile bodies and sensitive nature. They required warmth to survive, and the station's life support had been failing for days now. She could feel her body temperature dropping steadily. Her fingers had gone numb hours ago, and her thoughts were becoming sluggish. She knew what this meant. Death would come, slowly in the cold, and she would face it alone. Then she heard footsteps, heavy and purposeful, echoing through the empty corridors. Kira's heart jumped with a mixture of hope and fear. She tried to call out, but her voice came as barely a whisper. Her lips were too cold to form words properly. The footsteps grew closer, and then a figure appeared in the doorway. He was tall, much taller than any Villani, with broad shoulders and a sturdy frame that spoke of strength. His face was unfamiliar to her, but she recognized the species from the database files. Humans. They were relatively new to the galactic community, known for their persistence and adaptability, but also their unpredictability. The human's eyes widened when he saw her, and he rushed forward, dropping to his knees beside her. His hands hovered over her uncertainly, as if afraid to touch without permission. "You are freezing," he said, his voice deep and filled with concern. "What happened here?" Kira tried to explain, but her words came out jumbled and weak. The human, whose name she would later learn was Ryan, did not wait for a full explanation. He quickly removed his outer jacket, revealing another layer beneath, and wrapped it around her shoulders. The fabric was thick and heavy, and still warm from his body heat. Kira gasped at the sensation, feeling spreading back into her limbs with painful intensity. "Hold on," Ryan said firmly. "I am getting you out of here." He lifted her easily, cradling her against his chest as he stood. Kira had never been carried before. Her people were too delicate to handle each other this way, but the human held her with a gentleness that contradicted his obvious strength. She could feel the heat radiating from his body, seeping into her cold skin, and for the first time in days she felt something other than despair. Ryan carried her through the station back to his small scout ship. It was a modest vessel, clearly designed for solo missions, but it was warm and functional. He set her down carefully on the medical bed in the corner and immediately began working on the ship's controls. Within moments, warm air began flowing through the vents. "You need food," he stated, moving to a storage compartment. He pulled out several packets of what appeared to be emergency rations and a thermal blanket. He wrapped the blanket around her, then opened one of the food packets. The smell was strange but not unpleasant. Kira's hands shook as she took the offered food. Her pride wanted to refuse charity, but her survival instinct was stronger. She ate slowly, letting the warmth of the meal spread through her body. Ryan watched her carefully, his expression unreadable. "Thank you," she finally managed to say, her voice still weak but clearer than before. "Why did you help?" Marion looked surprised by the question, as if the answer should be obvious. "Because you needed help," he said simply. Is that not reason enough? In Kira's experience, it was not her own. People had left her behind when helping became inconvenient. The Galactic Federation spoke of cooperation, but their actions often revealed different priorities. Resources were allocated based on utility, and worth was measured in productivity. But here was this human offering aid without question or expectation of return. Over the following days, as Ryan's ship traveled toward the nearest Federation station, Kira learned more about her rescuer. He was a surveyor, mapping unexplored regions of space for potential colony sites. He lived alone by choice, preferring the quiet of space to the bustle of populated worlds. He spoke little about himself, but his actions revealed his character. He shared his food without hesitation, giving her the better portions when supplies ran low. He adjusted the ship's temperature to suit her needs, even though she knew it must be uncomfortably warm for him. He fashioned a more comfortable sleeping area for her, using his own blankets and cushions, and when nightmares of abandonment woke her in the darkness, he would sit nearby and talk quietly until she calmed. What struck Kira most was how he never made her feel like a burden. He did not sigh with frustration when she needed help, or look at her with pity when she struggled with tasks her weakened body could not manage. Instead, he simply adapted, finding ways to make things easier without drawing attention to her limitations. One evening, as they shared a meal, Kira finally asked the question that had been weighing on her mind. "Your people are new to the galaxy," she said carefully. "You do not owe the Villani anything. You could have left me there and no one would have blamed you. Why go so far for a stranger?" Ryan was quiet for a long moment, stirring his food thoughtfully when he finally spoke. His words were measured. "My grandmother used to say that the measure of a person is not what they do when others are watching, but what they do when no one would know the difference." He looked up, meeting her eyes. "You were alone and cold and scared. If I had left you there, I could have told myself it was not my problem, that someone else would come, that you would be fine. But I would have known the truth, and I would have had to live with that choice every day." Kira felt something shift in her chest, a warmth that had nothing to do with temperature. His words revealed a philosophy she had rarely encountered in the cold calculations of galactic politics. Here was someone who helped, not because of duty or obligation or expected reward, but because it was simply the right thing to do. When they finally reached the Federation station, Kira's people were overjoyed to see her alive. They apologized profusely for leaving her behind, claiming it had been a terrible mistake in the chaos of evacuation. But Kira saw the discomfort in their eyes, the knowledge that they had made a choice and would have lived with it if Ryan had not intervened. As Kira prepared to leave the ship, she turned to Ryan, wanting to find words adequate to express her gratitude. But he spoke first. "Take care of yourself," he said with a gentle smile. "If you ever need anything, you know how to reach me." Kira nodded, unable to speak past the tightness in her throat. She wanted to say that he had given her more than warmth and food and safety. He had given her something far more precious: hope that kindness still existed in a galaxy that often seemed cold and uncaring. He had shown her that worth was not measured in utility, and that strength could be gentle. As she walked away to rejoin her people, Kira carried with her not just the memory of rescue, but the knowledge that somewhere in the vast darkness of space, there were beings who would reach out a hand to help simply because another was in need. And that truth, she realized, was warmer than any star.